Well, here we are, and it's time to talk about Chapter 5, Entrepreneurship, one of my favorite chapters. I just want to encourage you guys to think about what you can do to make things easier, to make the world easier, to make life easier, to change your life, to change other people's lives. So when I talk about entrepreneurship, I want to tell you that most great ideas come from your own backyard, which means you see a need in your own life or in someone else's life, and you create something, and it becomes a big business, and that's how entrepreneurship happens. Entrepreneurship is just the process of creating and managing a business to achieve desired objectives. So don't ever think your idea is a really stupid idea. Bottled water was a really stupid idea. Water is available to all of us in this free world that we live in right here in the good old United States for free. And somebody decided at one point that they were going to start bottling water, and now it's a billion-dollar industry. So don't ever think it's a stupid idea just because somebody tells you that. Really check into it. I mean, if you have an idea, really run it past people. Entrepreneurship has changed so much, mostly because of the internet. We have access to information. We have access to research. We have access to sell to people over the internet. So this winter, my little granddaughter that's 8 years old decided she was going to set up an Etsy account. If you don't know what an Etsy account is, it's a craft site on craft and art site on the internet, and she opened an Etsy shop, and she was selling bracelets, pot holders, dish towels, and maybe something else. But we all sent an email out, of course, to our family and said, hey, Pippa has an Etsy shop open. You should buy something from her. Well, within like 3 days, she had more business than an 8-year-old could handle, and she closed down her Etsy shop. But that's kind of how things happen. I mean, a friend tells a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend, and if you have a good product or service, before you know it, you're busier than you want to be. So small business is any independently owned and operated business that is not dominant in its competitive area. Small Business Administration, the SBA, is an agency of the federal government that helps small businesses. So should you ever decide you want to open a small business, we have a Small Business Administration here in Springfield, and it's mostly free. There may be a more advanced area where you have to pay a small fee, but always feel free to use the Small Business Administration because they will help you get started and get rolling in a business. So the role of small businesses in the American economy, they represent 99.7% of employer firms, 63% of all new jobs. It's just the list of things that small businesses do is amazing. A small business produces 16 times more patents per employee, which means people get to use their mind and be creative. They employ nearly half of all private sector employees, and they pay 42% of the total U.S. private payroll taxes. So never sell yourself short on small businesses. They make a lot of money. They employ a lot of people. And it's great that we're in an economy where you can start your own business. There's some disadvantages. Disadvantages is sometimes it's hard to get money, to borrow money. Sometimes it's exhausting. And so there's some other things that are harder. But, I believe in entrepreneurship, and I believe in people being personally successful. I believe that not me, I'm not wealthy, but I don't believe that wealthy people who had a big idea. I always like to use Steve Jobs. He didn't start out to be wealthy. He started out with a big idea, and then he hired people, he paid them well, he did a lot of good for the community. So I hate it when people say, wealthy people, they don't give back. They give back a lot. They pay a large amount of income taxes. They do a lot of good social work. They hire a lot of people and pay benefits. So in your future, if you have the ability to start a business, buy a business, run a business, and you become very successful, never be ashamed of that. Always be proud of that. What you do need to make sure you're doing, though, is you're being a good neighbor. You're being a good social entrepreneur. You're sharing with your community. You're paying your employees fair wages and treating them right, paying your taxes. So there's nothing wrong with being successful as long as you're being an ethical leader. This is back to talking about company sizes. 0 to 19 employees, there are more than 5 million businesses that do that. 90% of our small businesses have just a few employees. 20 to 99 employees, 500,000, a few over. 100 to 495, 85,000 businesses, 1.5%. And then those with 500 employees or more, only 3% of all firms. Those are our big organizations like Walmart and IBM. So I'm not a huge Walmart fan. I'm going to talk about that here for a second. I feel like I have trouble shopping at Walmart. I'm not a shopper, first of all. I do errands. And if I go into Walmart, what I need is always all the way at the other end of the store. But it's a personal use is the reason I don't love Walmart. Walmart has come into small towns, and small businesses have closed down because of that. But the other thing Walmart does is they give back to their communities. They hire the people in that communities, and they make prices affordable for a lot of people. So when we want to take time and criticize big businesses, we also need to take time and realize all the good that big businesses do. So let's talk about if you're an entrepreneur or not. I know some people who are not entrepreneurs. They're great workers, they're very smart, but they do not have the traits of people who are entrepreneurs. First of all, do you take initiative? Do you have big ideas? Do you want to follow through on those ideas? Are you productive? Do you work hard, and are you willing to work harder than the next guy or the person next to you? Are you willing to work more than an 8-hour day? If you are, then you might be an entrepreneur. Oh my gosh, I could do a great Jeff Foxworthy thing on this. I'll have to think about that. Are you resourceful? Do you find a way to get things in a way that's less expensive, easier? Do you work smarter, not harder? Are you charismatic? Are people willing to follow you? Are they willing to take your advice? Are they willing to buy something that you say is good? Are you innovative? Can you think of a better way to build a mousetrap? Are you a risk taker? There is a lot of risk in being an entrepreneur. You have to step out there on faith, just with the idea that this might happen. Are you persistent? Do you push through walls of difficulty? And are you friendly? Most entrepreneurs who do really well don't sit in a room by themselves. Most of them are out there with people, sharing their ideas, sharing their dreams, sharing their vision. So I want to tell you about a real risk taker. Back in the 1950s, polio was prevalent in the United States. People were dying and becoming disabled because of polio. Dr. Jonas Salk started working on an immunization for polio, and he believed so strongly in the immunization that he had developed that he was willing to give it to himself and his family. That was real risk. So it worked. It prevented polio, and today polio is eradicated. But Dr. Jonas Salk was definitely an entrepreneur, a risk taker. He was innovative, he was smart, and he felt so strongly about the immunization that he had developed that he was willing to risk his family for it. So we have some entrepreneurs that we need to be really grateful for, people like Dr. Jonas Salk. So if you want to start a small business, here's what you do. You have a great idea or concept. Usually, I told you, they come from your own backyard. Create a business plan. You can go online anywhere on the internet and find great business plans. Devise yourself a great strategy. Don't just start out just off the cuff. You need to have a business plan. You need to make decisions. Decide what form of ownership you're going to have. Is it going to be a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation? How are you going to finance it? Do you have money? Are you going to borrow it from family? Are you going to borrow it from a bank? Are you going to get investments? What are you going to do? But let me tell you something I feel really strongly about. If you borrow money from your family, pay it back. Even if the business closes and you lose it and you go back to a regular job, work harder the next time and pay your family back. Are you going to acquire an existing business or start new? or are you going to buy a franchise? A franchise is where somebody has already developed the idea and you just purchase the ability to run that same business. Subway, McDonald's, Curves, there's lots, tons and tons of franchises out there. Some advantages of franchises is a lot of the work has already been done for you. The disadvantages of the franchise are that you pay a fee every month. There's more advantages than disadvantages, but the real advantage of a franchise is that someone else is doing the marketing for you, thinking up the big ideas. They've already made decisions about product and place and price and promotion. But you have to pay them a fee in order to do that. After developing the business plan, then you have to decide on the appropriate form of ownership and take care of that. If it's a sole proprietorship, you buy some liability insurance, you maybe open a storefront or buy some lawnmowers or whatever it takes, and you're good to go. If you're a partnership, like I said in the last chapter, make sure you have a memorandum of understanding and articles of partnership so everybody has a good understanding and there's no misunderstanding later on. If you're forming a corporation, then I recommend you'd have to hire an attorney and do it properly. So the baby boom generation consists of 75 million Americans. So it's a really, really good time to be an entrepreneur because there are a lot of people out there. We're a consumer world. We have lots of consumables. Research shows that wealthy but many small businesses do not actively pursue the baby boomers like they should. And an area that's really important is travel. Oh, let me replace this. The wealthy. Many small business owners don't pursue them like they should. And travel, it's just growing in leaps and bounds. If you have any interest in providing travel services, people are looking for them all the time. I was just looking for a hiking company that would lead hikes around Branson. And somebody told me there's one. I can't find them on the internet. I've done several searches. So if you do start a small company like that, then you need to make sure that you tell people you've started it. The millennials and Generations X number about 83 million, and many of them have a lot of expendable income, a lot of extra income. They want a lot of feedback. But you got two demographics here right now in our society that are huge and that small businesses and entrepreneurs have an opportunity to directly look for business from them. Okay, this is a great chapter. Read it carefully. There's a lot of really good information in it. So that's it for chapter 5, and I'll be back in a few days to talk to you about management.